Welcome to the Sharkpreneur podcast with Kevin Harrington and Seth Greene. Kevin Harrington is the inventor of the infomercial, one of the original sharks from the hit TV show Shark Tank, and has generated over $5 billion in TV and digital direct response sales. Seth Greene is the world's first trusted authority on cutting-edge direct response marketing, a best-selling author, and the only 3-time Marketer of the Year nominee. On the podcast, Kevin and Seth interview sharkpreneurs who share straight talk on what it takes to explode your business.
Why do so many businesses struggle while others seem to explode overnight? Do you wish you had the secret to this type of exponential growth? Now, I've scaled more than 20 businesses to over $100 million, and it's not just luck. In my new book with Mark Tim, Mentor to Millions, you'll learn the repeatable framework I use in all my business ventures for massive success. Order at kevinmentor.com and get over $1,000 in bonuses. Head to kevinmentor.com.
Welcome to the podcast. This is your co-host, Seth Greene. Today, I've got the good fortune to be joined by Tyler Cook from Hypermedia Marketing.net, who we're going to hear about how he helps find the money in every email, go from poor email deliverability, low contact engagement, and duct tape strategies to email as an actual, reliable, consistent profit center. Tyler, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, happy to be here, Seth.
Awesome. Let's go back in time. How'd you get into the email business in the first place?
Yeah, so it actually started in door-to-door sales. So when I was going to college, I was doing door-to-door sales to pay for college. And I'll be honest, I wasn't the best sales guy.
None of us are.
So to keep up with the other guys that I was selling against, I actually ended up like jogging door to door and kept meticulous track of all of my numbers and things like that. And honestly, just got a little bit burned out, but was fascinated with this idea that instead of selling, one-to-one, I could send out an email with a bunch of words on it to a bunch of people and sell to them. And it was just really fascinating. And so transitioned from, doing door-to-door sales to more direct response copywriting through email marketing.
Awesome. And I'm sure the longer version of that is in a book somewhere, or should be if it isn't already. So let's talk about, how did you discover direct response marketing in the first place? What was that? You talked about, hey, I could stop going door to door and go one to many, but how did that light bulb go off?
Yeah, it really was, going through that period of self-development. I feel like when you get really involved in sales, you start reading a lot because you kind of have to, right? It's kind of a dog eat dog world in sales. And so I was going through and reading all of these personal development books and all of these sales books. But then eventually it kind of transitions into, well, how do you speak better? How do you talk better? How do you communicate better? And then that's where I started reading, books by Perry Marshall and a few of the other, David Ogilvy, a few of the other advertising and copywriting greats, where I was like, oh, there's like this whole world around direct response. Like, I want to dive into that. So it kind of was tied to door-to-door sales and that personal development, and then just kind of gradually grew into direct response and copywriting.
Awesome. Do you remember what the first email was you ever wrote that brought in money?
Oh, shoot. That's a good question. I don't, to be honest, not off the top of my head. Actually it was, it would have been a version of the 9-word email. And now I'm blanking on the original person who
Dean Jackson.
There you go. It would have been a version of that where a client came and they were like, we've got 100,000 contacts on our email list. We haven't done anything with them for like 3 years. What do we do? And I was like, well, I've read about this, like this should work. So we sent that out and it was amazing. Got some really good responses, got phone calls and stuff like that. So I'd have to say that's probably the first really big email that I sent out that generated a huge amount of revenue.
Awesome. And then how did Hypermedia Marketing get started?
Yeah, great question. So I was working at another agency and was just, as I got started with marketing automation and email and direct response, was working at this agency, and it was awesome because they allowed me a lot of freedom to kind of test different things, work with a lot of various different clients. But eventually what ended up happening is at the beginning, I was able to ask a lot of questions, right? But towards the end of my tenure there wasn't necessarily anybody that I could go to with questions. Everybody was coming to me. And so I kind of realized, the writing on the wall of if I wanted to progress to the next level, I wasn't necessarily going to do it at this agency, even though, that agency was awesome. And so then I have a touch of ADHD. And so I really liked the hyper, part. And so I was like, hey, let's go out and create my own email marketing agency. And so, Hypermedia Marketing was born.
Awesome. How long ago was that? What year did you start?
2019, August of 2019.
Awesome.
So then
congratulations on making it past your first 4 years, right in the middle of right at the perfect time of a pandemic.
I know, right?
Well, hopefully a lot more people realized they needed to do a lot more with their email lists during the pandemic.
Yes, 100%.
What do you think are some of the biggest mistakes business owners, entrepreneurs, online marketers are making when it comes to email?
Yeah, another good question. Not taking it seriously enough. It really is a core channel for a lot of businesses, and a lot of businesses kind of take it for granted. Kind of the way that I think about it is whenever there's a transaction that happens online, what is like the one consistent piece of information that is always required? An email, right? Whether you're purchasing something from an e-commerce store, whether you're asking to follow up with somebody, you're always asking for emails. And it's because it's a direct line of communication to people. And so I would say that the number one thing is not taking it seriously enough.
Amen to that. Now, there's been a lot of talk, which you know about in the last few years in terms of email deliverability. Yet you've got a secret superpower to help us actually land more in the inbox more often. Talk a little bit about how you developed that and how it's been working.
Yeah. So the way that I think about email deliverability is in terms of algorithms, right? So this, obviously applies to social media, although their algorithms are a bit different than email provider algorithms. But I like to take a step back and think about it in terms of positive signals versus negative signals. So if you want to get more of your emails to the inbox, really the strategy can be summed up as get more positive signals than you do negative signals. And so those positive signals are things like open rates, clicks, replies, emails forwarded, emails shared, emails starred, even dwell time. How long does somebody actually keep your email in front of them on an active screen reading through? Those are all positive signals. And so my strategies really rely on segmenting your list in a way that I can get as many positive signals as quickly as possible, which then builds up your sender reputation, builds up your IP reputation. But the results are kind of speak for themselves. I just recently started working with a client who they're on a few blacklists, which typically mean that all of your emails just instantly go to spam. But using my strategies, even though we are still building up his domain reputation, his sender reputation, we're still trying to get his information off those blacklists. We're able to get 50% open rates. So when you can kind of game the algorithm, if you will, and use it to your advantage, email can still be a very powerful channel for you.
So it's interesting that you use the word algorithm, because everybody talks about the algorithm in relation to like TikTok or Facebook or social media advertising. They don't necessarily refer to it so much when it comes to email. So I love that you are using it in that way. Obviously, a 50% open rate, some of us would say, hey, man, if I could get half the people open my emails, I'd retire. And that would be a license to print money. So I don't want to assume anything of any of our viewers or listeners. You said you want more positive signals to negative signals. First off, I'm going to make you back up just a second. What's a signal And then what's a positive signal versus what are some negative signals?
Yeah. So a signal is just basically a data point that any mailbox provider like Gmail or Outlook or Yahoo are tracking, right? So that's a signal. Now, positive signals are essentially positive engagement. So the end user is opening your email, opening multiple emails, clicking on links that you are giving to them in the email. They're replying back. Dwell time, like I mentioned, is another interesting signal where oftentimes they're tracking, like for example, Yahoo, they actually publish this information so you can find it. Their dwell time is sub 3 seconds is actually a negative signal. 3 to 8 seconds is kind of a neutral, and then above 8 seconds is a positive signal for them. And so, Gmail, Outlook, they kind of use those same ones. Now, negative signals are kind of the inverse of that, right? Marking as spam, complaining, never opening your emails. Those types of things are negatives. Even having automated filters in your mailbox. So it's, hey, when this user sends me an email, automatically archive it, but send it to this folder. That could be a negative signal. I do that a lot in my inbox to keep it nice and clean, but it is that negative signal. So going back to a previous question real quick about, what's the number one thing that business owners, don't do with email marketing? And I said, not taking it seriously. One thing that a lot of business owners also don't realize is that if you have a list of 10,000, 20,000, 50,000, 500,000, right? When you're sending out and you're getting 20% open rates consistently, what many don't realize is that 80%, that's negative signals because they're not engaging with that content. And so Outlook and Gmail and Yahoo, they're tracking that and they're seeing, hey, when this sender sends out this huge email blast, you're kind of like passively collecting all of these negative signals that then negatively impact your future open rates, right? And so that's why I use the strategies and the list segmentation that I do to help keep as many people engaged and again, to kind of game the algorithm, use that algorithm for my advantage.
That makes a lot of sense. And how do we turn email into a profit center?
Yeah, so really it's about engagement. And so really if I were to leave advice with anybody here, it would be having your list segmented by engagement. And so I usually like to do 0 to 8 days, 9 to 30, 31 to 60 would kind of be the core group of people that I'll focus on. And so to really turn email into that profit center, first, you want to keep as many people in those 3 segments as possible. And then 2, you really want to send relevant content and authority type content. I find most people unsubscribe, not because they hate your guts and they don't really ever want to hear from you again. They're really unsubscribing because you're sending them irrelevant content. Right. And so to really turn that email channel into that profit center, send relevant content, send it consistently, build up your authority, and then don't be afraid to ask them to give you money. People are willing to give you money when you ask them in the right way and when you kind of have that authority behind the ask.
You mentioned some of the books you read that started you on your journey. What are you reading now?
Well, I'm actually rereading a book right now. It's called Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss, if you've read it.
Yep, the negotiation book for sure.
Yeah, it's a good negotiation book. What I've done is I've actually leveraged some of those principles into copywriting. So using a different version of the 9-word email, if you will, is I've used the no-oriented questions. So I'll send out an email that says, have you given up? And that's it. And then inside of the email, I'll say something like, have you given up on leveraging email marketing? And that's it. So it's kind of a version of the 9-word email. And that gets usually phenomenal results. So I'm actually rereading it because there's some principles that I'm applying in copywriting an email.
I love that. I'm writing it down right now. I will test sending that email as well. I think the idea of using questions and getting people to actually answer them, obviously, not only did they open the email, but they replied which are positive signals, right?
Yep, exactly.
You are on the forefront of all things email. It seems like something is changing in the digital online marketing world, whether the latest is ChatGPT and before that, the new thing was TikTok. How do you stay on top of it all?
Oh, that's a great question. I subscribe to some industry newsletters. So, one of the ones that I like to read a lot is Stacked Marketer, as a shout out there. It's a pretty good one. And then there's a few other kind of more niche email ones communities that I'll stay in front of, just so that I can kind of see different things. And then the last piece is really just kind of testing and seeing myself kind of what's out there. But really it's to stay on top of it, you got to have a good community that you're a part of that has those fringe use cases, if you will.
For sure. You've achieved some incredible results for your clients and for yourself. Can you share a case study with us of a company that came to you, what their challenge was when they hired you, and then kind of the magical transformation you were able to engineer for them?
Yeah, so a recent one is I was working with, I don't know what to call it, like Instagram influencer. They're pretty well known. They used to be a beach body coach back in the day, and now they've transitioned into working on helping creators build up their Instagram profiles. And so we did a big 3-day kind of mini course product launch. If you're familiar with Jeff Walker and his product launch, it was kind of a different version of that style of launch. But they have a pretty big list, about 400,000 people. And one of the things that they were struggling on is getting engagement on those emails. They had such a massive list that as they sent out those emails, it was just, 5% open rates, 7% open rates, 12% open rates. They just could not get eyeballs onto their content. And if you've ever done a launch before, you know how many of those emails are going out. Every one of those percentages matter, right? It makes big differences in that swing in revenue. And so we created those engagement segments, like I talked about, 0 to 8. We gamed the algorithm a little bit, and overall, we were actually able to get their let's say 10% open rate overall to all 350 people, upwards of about 32%.
Wow.
In terms of that engagement. And so obviously once we hit the sales just exploded, went crazy, and ended up being a good 7-figure launch for that client. So basing it off of engagement and really working with those algorithms really helps out when it comes financially.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. And that's an incredible result. You've achieved so much success for clients. Your passion is obvious. What do you like best about what you're doing?
Good question. Going back to just seeing those results, like it's really fascinating to me that I can write words on a screen and hit a button and send it out, and people engage with it. And then they either give me money or they give clients money. Like, to me, it's really fascinating. So I love testing all of the different things and different ways to do that better.
Awesome. For our folks watching and listening who want to learn more about all things Tyler and Hypermedia, where should we send them?
Yeah, they can check out my website, hypermediamarketing.net. Again, that's .net, not .com. Go there. I've got an opt-in exit intent there that will give you the complete guide to deliverability. It has everything that you'll need to do to make sure that you have your tech set up correctly. All of your, all the boring stuff that makes people's eyes bleed when they look at the screen. Has step-by-step videos, but then also I have in there a re-engagement sequence that I've used across all of my clients to generate 6-7 figures in revenue. If they are struggling with engaging with their list, I also have the welcome flow that you need on there. So go download that. Or you can also find me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, talk about email marketing there, give some quick hit tips there.
Awesome. Well, this has been Seth Greene for Sharkpreneur with Tyler Cook of hypermediamarketing.net. Make sure you pick up that guide. Tyler, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, thanks, Seth. It was great being here.
Thanks to everybody for watching or listening. We will talk to you or see you next time. Do you need money to fund your idea, product, or service? Are you ready to take your business to the next level, but need capital to get it done? Kevin Harrington has heard more than 50,000 pitches and knows how to help you make the perfect pitch to get the funding for your entrepreneurial dream. He's distilled the process down in his perfect pitch cheat sheet, and it's yours for free. Just text PITCH to him right now at 727-888-2100. Text PITCH to 727-888-2100 right now and claim your free perfect pitch cheat sheet. Text PITCH to 727-888-2100 to start funding your dream today.
This show has been produced by Market Domination, LLC. To discover how you can have your own show completely done for you and turn it into a real published book and become the authority in your marketplace, go to www.marketdominationllc.com/podcast offer.